Satele Shan is a fraud in the Star Wars universe and within the Jedi's historical archives. Now, I know that the title of this video may seem a bit stupid, but it's one of these stories that I really wanted to share with you guys and to make a video on. Because, just like many other things, it's another issue that the Old Republic establishes within the lore, which causes a major contradiction. So, if you are familiar with the Old Republic in any way, shape or form, Satele Shan is the face of that era for the Jedi, much like Darth Malgus is for the Sith. She is the iconic descendant of Satele Shan and Revan, and she is widely regarded as one of the most powerful Jedi to have ever existed, and one of the most lauded Grand Masters that they ever had in charge. But that doesn't change the fact that she is a fraud within the Jedi's historical archives. Because while Satele Shan rediscovered Tython after many years, and helped the Jedi Order regrow after it was extremely damaged during the sacking of Coruscant, she was then given the Jedi Grand Master title, and she is lauded as being the youngest Jedi Grand Master to have ever existed in the Star Wars universe. She took up the mantle of Grand Master at the ripe old age of 54 years old, even though she looked about 20. It is one of her greatest achievements historically, and despite being a heroic warrior within a devastating war, this is what she's remembered for. But she really shouldn't be, because based on all of the information that we have, there is one Jedi Grand Master that was younger who existed over 300 years before. Step in the one and only Nomi Sunrider. Now, there is one specific reason why the Old Republic claims that Satele Shan is the youngest, and that's because they have her birth date. They know exactly when Satele was born, and they know exactly how old she was at the time she took up the mantle of Grand Master. On the other hand, for Nomi, they don't specifically have a date, but all it takes is a little bit of digging into the stories of Tales of the Jedi, the comic book series where Nomi appears, and the history of her character to know that Nomi was much younger than Satele when she was appointed the Jedi Grand Master. So, how do I know this? Well, we can gather all of the information we need based on Nomi's historical family records. Nomi was originally known as Nomi de Boda, and when she was very young, she married a young man known as Andor Sunrider, of course becoming known then as Nomi Sunrider. Andor himself does have an official birth date. It was the year 4019 BBY, or 4019 BBY. Andor is then sadly killed in 3999 BBY. So this puts Andor's age at exactly 20 years old. Now, Andor was a Jedi and Nomi wasn't. It was always noted that Nomi was extremely in awe of Andor's ability to connect with the Force. Andor began his Jedi training properly in 4001 BBY at the age of 18. We also know that he married Nomi before he began his training. It would only be a year later that Nomi fell pregnant with their daughter. Nomi is also described briefly as a young woman, just like Andor is described as a young man. And just based on this alone, we can assume that Nomi Sunrider is probably the same age or in and around. And even if they're not directly the same age, just based on the visuals of the comics and the way they are described, you can assume that she's probably within a 20-year age gap. Where Andor is 20 at the time of his death, it's highly likely that Nomi was probably between 20 or 30 years old at the time too. When Andor dies abruptly and tragically, his Force ghost reaches out to Nomi and essentially advises her to follow in his footsteps and become a Jedi. And this is why she then goes on her own personal journey. It's why she becomes involved with the Jedi and becomes part of all of the wars, such as the Exar Kun War, and so on. She then becomes the Jedi Grand Master about 10 years after the Exar Kun War, which is approximately 3986 BBY, and she would have been around 33 or 34 years old. Over 20 years younger than Satele Shan was when she became the Jedi Grand Master, which would unequivocally make Nomi Sunrider the youngest Jedi Grand Master in Star Wars, and the reason why the Old Republic's entire description and Satele's historical records are fraudulent. Nomi would have had to have been 40 years old in Tales of the Jedi for her to have been older than Satele Shan was when she became the Jedi Grand Master, and I legitimately think this is impossible. If you read the Tales of the Jedi comics, there is absolutely no way in hell that Nomi is even over 30 in those stories, and she is just a normal human being. She isn't a hybrid or an alien or anything like that, which could make her look younger than she is. And I don't even think this is a matter of opinion, I think it is objective fact that the Old Republic just gets this wrong and tries to propel Satele Shan as this young special miracle when she really isn't. But of course, I decided to dig into this and do some research and see what other people had to say, and one explanation that people give has to do with the way the light side alters the appearance. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, Satele Shan is 54 when she becomes the Grand Master, but she actually looks really young in the Old Republic. And this is likely due to the fact that the light side of the Force and being heavily in tune with it can allow the Jedi to look younger than they are and to retain their youthful appearance for longer. And in Satele Shan's case, I think this is what happened. And some people like to suggest that maybe this is the same for Nomi, that she is 40 years old, but she just looks 20 in the comics. But I don't think that this is possible, because at the time of the comic books, Nomi isn't a trained Jedi, and she's not really in tune with the Force. She doesn't have a deep connection with it at this point, so it's very unlikely that the light side is helping her to retain a youthful appearance, and she also doesn't give off the vibe of a cougar either. Nomi is very unsure of herself in the early stages of her story. She's very naive, and her personality within the story indicates that she's pretty young and she's going on a journey of self-discovery. There is also the argument that this is just a mistake within the Jedi's historical records, and that's highly possible, I guess. Like I mentioned, they knew Satele's age exactly, and it's possible they didn't know Nomi's, but it's not like Nomi Sunrider was forgotten. She is widely regarded as one of the most important Jedi Masters in the Jedi Order's history. She is often spoken about in high regard alongside other Masters like Yoda and Luke, so her historical relevance didn't just disappear. Additionally, this is never retconned in any of the encyclopedias that are out there that are out of universe that give concrete details about the stories. And for me, this is legitimately just another thing that the Old Republic gets wrong when it comes to the lore of Star Wars. I think when they were writing the character of Satele Shan and the things she's achieved, they just decided to slap this title on her, and they didn't take the time to consider that maybe she wasn't actually the youngest Jedi Grand Master. And to be honest, they had a lot of problems with Satele Shan anyway when it comes to inconsistencies with her age. So it's very possible that they actually intended for Satele Shan to be much younger than she was, but they had to make her older for the sake of the story, and this is where the inconsistency is created, and they just didn't take the time to go back and fix it. But anyway, I just wanted to share this with you guys because I know a lot of you like to do your own research about the lore of Star Wars in your own time, and the interwebs will tell you that Satele was the youngest Jedi Grand Master, but she's not. She's a historical fraud. As always, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button, it helps me out a great deal. It tells YouTube to treat me nicely in the algorithm so that other Star Wars fans can also learn that Nomi Sunrider is best girl. And if you haven't, perhaps consider subscribing to join the biggest growing Knights of the Old Republic community on YouTube. I'll see you guys in the next video. But until then, may the Force be with you. Always.